Callum West wasn't expecting the woman with shaking hands and tear-filled eyes on the airport bench to change his life, but then again, nothing about his life had gone according to plan lately. He shifted his squirming 6-year-old son, Griffin, on his hip and glanced around the crowded terminal. Their flight back to Chicago had just been delayed another 3 hours, and Griffin, all energy and no patience, had already finished his snacks, run out of things to color, and asked when they'd be home at least 12 times. Callum spotted the empty space at the far end of the gate and made a beeline for it, only slowing when he noticed her. She was sitting alone on a bench, hugging her knees to her chest, her breathing fast and shallow. Her eyes darted around like she was trying to hold herself together and failing. Callum shifted Griffin off his hip and knelt down in front of him. "Hey buddy, you see that coffee shop over there?" he pointed. "Go pick a muffin, I'll be right here, okay?" Griffin nodded and trotted off. Callum sat down a few feet from the woman, not too close. "Hey. Are you okay?" She didn't look at him, just shook her head quickly, her fingers digging into her arms. He lowered his voice. "You're having a panic attack, right?" Her chest rose and fell in short bursts. "I've been there," he said gently. "More than once, it's okay." "Can I sit a little closer?" She gave the smallest nod. He scooted over. "What's your name?" Her lips barely moved. "Dahlia, Dahlia, that's beautiful," he said. "I'm Callum. I have a 6-year-old who's probably convincing a barista to give him extra whipped cream right now." That got her to blink at him. "Can I walk you through breathing? Just follow me, okay?" he said, then took a slow breath in through his nose, held it for 4 seconds, then released it. She tried. Her breath hitched a little, but she followed. They did it again, and again. After a few minutes, her shoulders dropped slightly, her hands uncurled. "You're doing great," he said. "You're safe, you're here." Her eyes finally met his. They were wide, watery, and full of something that looked like gratitude and disbelief all at once. "Thank you," she whispered. Before he could answer, Griffin came back with a chocolate muffin nearly the size of his head. "I picked one for you too, Dad," he said, holding out a second one. Callum took it, smiling. "Thanks, buddy." Griffin turned to Dahlia. "Are you sad, Griffin?" Callum warned softly, but Dahlia gave a tiny smile. "A little, but your dad helped." Griffin beamed like that was the best thing anyone had ever said about his father. They sat there for a while together. Callum broke off pieces of muffin to hand to Griffin, who was clearly trying to make Dahlia laugh by making the muffin pieces talk to each other like puppets. And somehow, it worked. Dahlia let out a soft laugh, her eyes brighter now. Eventually, her breathing evened out completely. She straightened. "I'm sorry," she said, brushing hair from her face. I didn't mean to make a scene." "You didn't," Callum said. "You handled it." She looked at him for a long moment. "You didn't have to sit with me," he shrugged. "Yeah, I did. You looked like you needed someone. I know what that feels like." Something shifted in her expression. "Are you flying to or from somewhere?" he asked, trying to keep things light. "Flying home. I was visiting New York for a few days. Business." "Same, not business though." "Just a failed vacation," he said. "Griffin's mom passed away 3 years ago. I tried to give him something fun this week, but the hotel had bugs. The car broke down, flights delayed. It's been a mess." Dahlia's brows drew together. "I'm sorry. Don't be." He still got to see Times Square and eat a pretzel the size of his head, and I got to sit down for 5 minutes without worrying he was climbing a gate. She laughed again. "You're a good dad." His throat tightened a little. "I try." A pause settled between them, not awkward, just warm. Dahlia glanced at the departure board. "Looks like we're both stuck here for a while." "Guess so." "Would it be weird if I asked to sit with you guys? Just until the flight?" Callum raised an eyebrow. "Would it be weird if I said yes?" She smiled, and it wasn't shaky this time. "I brought snacks." Griffin perked up. "What kind?" "Gummy bears and cheese crackers." "You're hired," Griffin said dramatically, and Callum laughed. They moved to a bigger bench, and for the next 2 hours they talked. Dahlia was sharp, witty, and kind. She asked Griffin questions about school and listened like she actually cared. She asked Callum about his job. He worked as a mechanic and somehow didn't flinch at the mention of long hours and tight money. He didn't ask what she did. He assumed business consultant or marketing, something polished. Her coat alone probably cost more than his rent, but she never looked down on him. Not once. By the time the flight boarded, Griffin had fallen asleep against her arm, and Callum felt that strange, unexplainable pull in the center of his chest. They sat together on the plane. She took the middle seat, letting Griffin stretch out by the window. And as the flight took off, her hand brushed against his. She didn't pull away, neither did he when they landed. Dahlia hesitated by the baggage claim. I don't live far from here, if you ever wanted to grab coffee. Or dinner, Callum blinked. You're asking me out, she turned pink. I'm trying, he grinned. Yeah, I'd really like that. She looked down at Griffin. And maybe we could go to the zoo or something. Callum looked at her, really looked, and saw something there he hadn't let himself hope for in a long time. You're not going to disappear once we leave this airport, right? She shook her head. No, I'm not. Then yeah. Let's do dinner, she smiled. It's a date. Neither of them knew it yet, but that airport bench wasn't just the start of a conversation, it was the start of everything. The rain hit the windshield in steady sheets as Callum pulled into the parking lot of Lou's garage, the wipers scraping back and forth in a tired rhythm. The sky hung low and gray, matching the ache in his shoulders. He parked, turned off the ignition, and glanced into the rearview mirror where Griffin was curled up in the backseat, hoodie pulled over his head, a worn plush dinosaur clutched to his chest. Dad, can I stay in the car? Griffin mumbled without opening his eyes. Yeah, kiddo. I'll only be a minute. Callum grabbed his toolbox from the trunk and jogged through the rain toward the service bay. The garage smelled like oil, rubber, and burnt coffee, comforting in its own way. He waved to Lou, who was hunched over the front desk, flipping through invoices. You're late, Lou grunted, not looking up. Traffic, Callum said, dropping his bag. And the kid had a dentist appointment, Lou snorted. That boy's gonna have better teeth than both of us put together. Callum forced a grin, but it didn't quite land. His mind wasn't in the garage, it hadn't been since the airport. He hadn't stopped thinking about Dahlia. Something about her lingered, like the echo of a favorite song you don't realize you're humming until someone points it out. She'd kept her promise. 2 days after they landed, she called. They'd met at a quiet little Italian place halfway between their neighborhoods. Griffin had insisted on wearing a bow tie, and Dahlia brought him a small book on sea animals. She remembered he liked whales. She remembered everything. Callum, Lou barked, snapping him out of it. You gonna stare at the wall all day, or you fixing the Cherokee in Bay 3? Right, he muttered, wiping his hands on a rag as he headed toward the lift. He lost himself in the work for a few hours, rotating tires, checking fluid levels, replacing a brake pad that squealed louder than a fire alarm. But even under the hood, he couldn't stop replaying the night Dahlia had invited them to her place for dinner. He hadn't expected the penthouse. She'd said she had a nice condo, like it was some modest walk up. Instead, they stepped out of the elevator into glass walls, marble floors, and a sweeping view of the city skyline. Griffin had gasped so loudly, Callum had to nudge him to keep walking. Callum had tried not to stare at the grand piano near the fireplace or the sleek, modern furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Dahlia didn't seem to notice. She was too busy showing Griffin where the juice boxes were. He hadn't asked questions that night, though he wanted to. He didn't want to ruin it. Hey, West, Lou shouted again. You've got company. Callum looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. Dahlia stood at the garage entrance, holding a paper bag and looking dramatically out of place in her tailored coat and suede ankle boots. The rain had darkened the edges of her hair, but she didn't seem to mind. Lou eyed her from behind the counter. She yours? Callum tossed the rag into the bin. Yeah, Dahlia smiled faintly as he approached. I brought lunch. Hope you're not allergic to anything in a sandwich. He took the bag, surprised. You didn't have to do that. I was in the area. You live 30 minutes away, she shrugged. I drive fast, he laughed, stepping aside so she could follow him toward the break room. The walls were dingy, the vending machine flickered, and the table wobbled, but she sat like it was a 5-star restaurant. I didn't realize you had a whole team of admirers, she said, nodding back toward the service bay where 2 of the younger mechanics were definitely pretending not to watch them. I don't. They're just nosy. They're wondering what a woman in boots this expensive is doing in a garage like this. He raised an eyebrow. Are they expensive? Not the most expensive pair I own, he paused. So you're not going to pretend anymore, she tilted her head. Pretend what? That you're not rich. Her expression didn't change. Do you want me to? He exhaled slowly, setting the bag down. I don't care how much money you have. I care if you're real. I'm here, aren't I? He met her gaze, and something in his chest eased. You didn't ask what I did for a living, she said. I figured you'd tell me when you were ready. I run a portfolio of private equity firms, she said simply. I invest in companies that are about to go under, stabilize them, then either sell or restructure. He blinked. So. That's why you're always on the phone, she nodded, and why my schedule's a mess. You saved companies for a living, he said slowly. That's intense, she leaned back. And you rebuild engines. You rescue 6-year-olds from boring weekends and fix cars that people depend on to get to work. That's intense too. He didn't know what to say to that, so he unwrapped the sandwich. Is Griffin still in the car? She asked. He's asleep. I checked on him twice. She hesitated. I was thinking. There's a children's museum opening this weekend. Private preview, not open to the public yet. I have tickets. You both could come. He looked up. You sure? I wouldn't offer if I wasn't, he nodded. He'd love that. She smiled, but her fingers tapped against the table, betraying a flicker of nerves. I know we're different, Callum. I wasn't trying to hide who I am. But I didn't want you to see a balance sheet instead of a person. I didn't, he said, quiet but firm. I saw someone who sat with my kid and asked him about sea creatures. Someone who brought us sandwiches and didn't flinch when she walked into a place with oil stains on the walls. I like you, she said. And it's not because I'm trying to fix you or save you. I just like you. He reached out, brushing his fingers against hers. That's good. Because I like you too. Whether you're in heels in a penthouse or sitting on a bench with your hair a mess. She laughed softly. You just had to bring up the panic attack. I'm saying I liked you before I knew anything else. Her eyes softened. So we're doing this. I think we already are. She looked at their hands. I should go. I've got a meeting in an hour. I'll walk you out. Outside, the rain had lightened to a drizzle. She paused by her car, a sleek black sedan that looked like it cost more than the garage. Before she got in, she turned. You still haven't asked me the question everyone else does. What's that? How much I'm worth? He smiled faintly. I don't need to. She studied him for a second longer, then kissed his cheek. I'll see you Saturday. As her car disappeared down the street, Callum stood there for a moment, the rain dampening his shirt, and thought for the first time in a long time that maybe, just maybe, something was finally about to go right. The museum preview was more than just an outing, it was a glimpse into a life Callum had never imagined for himself. Security waved them through without hesitation, and staff in matching navy polos offered them bottled water the moment they stepped inside. Dahlia met them near the entrance, her coat already draped over one arm and her hair pulled back in a sleek twist that made her look like she belonged in a boardroom instead of a children's exhibit filled with foam dinosaurs and oversized musical instruments. Griffin immediately ran toward the light-up floor tiles that changed color when you stepped on them. Callum followed more slowly, watching Dahlia slip off her heels and chase after Griffin without hesitation. Did you just voluntarily go barefoot in public? Callum asked, raising an eyebrow. I'm not completely unreasonable, she said, laughing as she leapt onto a blue tile. These floors get cleaned twice a day, I checked. You would. She grinned and pointed toward a giant set of gears on the wall. We're building a water system next. Come on, you'll like it. The morning passed in a blur of laughter and kinetic energy. Callum helped Griffin construct a tower out of foam blocks taller than himself, while Dahlia read out the instructions for the pulley system with exaggerated seriousness. They took photos, ate overpriced popcorn, and when Griffin finally ran out of steam and collapsed onto a beanbag in the reading lounge, Callum leaned back beside him and looked over at Dahlia. You didn't have to do all this, he said quietly. I wanted to, she replied, voice softer now. Why? Her gaze didn't waver. Because the two of you deserve to know what it feels like to have a day where everything works. Callum's throat tightened. It's not usually like this. Most of the time I'm just trying to keep up. I know, she said. But you don't have to do it alone. He didn't answer right away. Griffin had fallen asleep with a book still open on his chest, his fingers curled around the edge of the page. Callum brushed his hair back gently. I don't even know how to let someone help, Callum admitted. You don't have to know yet, she said. Just let me try. Later that evening, after they dropped Griffin off with Callum's neighbor, an older woman who adored Griffin and insisted on feeding him lasagna every time he visited, Callum drove them to a quiet bar on the edge of downtown. It was the kind of place where the lights were low and the music didn't require shouting to talk over. They sat in a booth near the back, both nursing glasses of something amber and smooth. So, he said, turning toward her, I've been thinking about you. That sounds ominous, she teased. You said you restructure companies. You step in when things are falling apart, fix what's broken. I try to, he hesitated. Are you doing that with me? Her expression turned serious. No, I'm not here to fix you, Callum. I'm here because when I'm around you, I don't feel like I have to be perfect. You don't treat me like I'm made of gold or glass. You just see me. I do, he said. And I want to keep seeing you, but I don't know if I fit into your world. She reached across the table, lacing her fingers with his. I don't want you to fit into my world. I want to build something with you, something new. He looked down at their hands. That sounds impossible. It's not, but it's going to take honesty, even when it's uncomfortable. He nodded slowly. Then I should tell you something. She waited. I have debt, he said. A lot of it. From Griffin's birth, from when his mom got sick, from when I couldn't work for a while afterwards. I barely break even most months. The only reason I'm not drowning is because Lou lets me take side jobs at night. Dahlia didn't flinch. Thank you for telling me. I didn't want you to think I was hiding it. You weren't. You were surviving. That's different, he exhaled, something loosening in his chest. Your turn, something uncomfortable. She hesitated, then leaned closer. My father doesn't know about you. He wouldn't approve, Callum blinked. Why not? Because you didn't go to Yale, because you have grease under your nails, because you don't own a hedge fund. He pulled back slightly. Wow. I'm not saying I agree with him, she said quickly. I left home at 19 and built my own life. But he still tries to control the narrative, and I've spent a long time letting him. Callum looked at her, really looked. Are you afraid he'll cut you off? She shook her head. No, I'm afraid he'll try to make me choose, and I don't want to lose either of you. Silence settled between them. Not heavy, but careful. I don't need a benefactor, Callum said after a moment. I just need someone who won't walk away when things get complicated. I'm not going anywhere. You say that now. I say that because I mean it. They left the bar an hour later, the city lights casting long shadows on the sidewalk. Callum walked her to her car, an elegant coupe parked beneath the street lamp. She opened the door but didn't get in. Can I ask you something? She said. Of course. If I invited you to a fundraiser next week, something formal, black tie, would you come? He looked at her, then down at his boots. I own exactly one suit, he said. Then we'll make that suit the best one in the room. She leaned in and kissed him, no hesitance this time, slow. Certain, when she pulled back, her eyes searched his. I'm serious, Callum, I want this. So do I, he said, voice rough. But if I show up, I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not. I wouldn't want you to. She got into the car and started the engine. The headlights flared across his face as she pulled away, but Callum didn't move. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was starting to hope. The ballroom shimmered beneath a constellation of crystal chandeliers, their glow refracted in the slick marble underfoot. Waiters in white jackets moved like clockwork, balancing trays of champagne flutes and canapés. String music drifted through the air like perfume, elegant and practiced. Callum tugged at the collar of his black suit, the only one he owned, and the same one he'd worn to his brother's wedding 5 years earlier. It had survived a flood, a moth invasion, and a near miss with a leaking radiator. Still, freshly dry cleaned and paired with a new tie Dahlia had left folded on his kitchen counter, it held its own. He stood near the rear of the room, next to a sculpture shaped like an abstract wave made entirely of glass, watching as people who'd never once worried about the price of milk smiled, clinked glasses, and exchanged greetings like currency. Dahlia hadn't arrived yet, which gave him time to realize how deeply out of place he felt, a voice to his right. You're not with the chamber. Callum turned to find a woman in her 60s, hair silver and styled into something sharp, her dress tailored within an inch of its life. No, he said. I'm not, she appraised him. But you're standing where the chamber members' spouses usually gather during speeches. You either crash this gala or you're here for someone. I'm here for someone, her eyes narrowed. Dahlia, he nodded, jaw tensing, she sighed. She's late. As usual, you know her, I'm her stepmother. Callum stiffened, she didn't wait for a response. You're the mechanic. I am. You brought your son to the museum event last weekend. She sipped her drink. He seemed bright. Callum kept his voice level. He is, she tilted her head. Do you know what you're doing? I'm guessing you're not asking about the hors d'oeuvres. She's spent years building a reputation. There are people in this room who'd hand her $100 million based on a handshake. You think she can afford a scandal? Callum's chest tightened, but he didn't move. Is that what I am, a scandal? You're a wrench turner, and she's a Westbrook. You do the math. Before he could respond, Dahlia appeared at the top of the staircase, descending like the room had been built just to watch her walk through it. Her gown was midnight blue, her hair swept up, earrings catching the light like stars. The moment she spotted Callum, she smiled. Not the polite kind, the real kind. She crossed the room, ignoring every outstretched hand, and whispered greeting. Sorry I'm late, she said, slipping her hand into his. You're not, he said, still watching her stepmother retreat into the crowd. She followed his gaze. She spoke to you, she did. And she thinks I'm a scandal. Dahlia's jaw flexed. That makes two of us then. I'm her scandal too. Callum glanced around. Everyone's watching. Let them. Dahlia, a voice boomed nearby. A heavyset man with silver hair and a tailored tuxedo the color of ink approached, flanked by two men in matching suits. His handshake was firm, his smile perfunctory. Callum, Dahlia said, her voice cool. This is my father. Callum extended his hand. Sir, the man didn't take it. You didn't tell me you were bringing company, he said, eyes flicking over Callum's suit. I didn't think I needed permission. I didn't say that. He looked at Callum again. What do you do? I fix things, Callum said. Dahlia's father arched a brow. I assumed that. Callum held his gaze. Not just cars, sometimes people need fixing too. Dahlia's father gave a clipped nod. We'll talk later, Dahlia. As he walked away, Dahlia turned back to Callum. You handled that better than I did. I've had practice with people who think I don't belong. You do, she said, quieter now. With me. They sat at the back of the ballroom during the speech, barely hearing a word. Her hand stayed on his thigh under the table, a quiet anchor. Afterward, when the crowd poured toward the dance floor, Dahlia stood and extended her hand. Dance with me. I haven't since high school. Then it's overdue. He let her pull him to the center of the room, where couples swayed beneath the chandeliers. She guided his hands to her waist, her own resting lightly on his shoulders. I'm not good at this, he said. You're doing fine. They moved together, slowly at first, then more easily as the music wrapped around them. Every time he looked at her, she looked back like she already knew what he was thinking. This isn't my world, he said under his breath. It's not mine either, she whispered. Not really, I just live in it, he paused. What does that mean? I've spent my whole life building something I thought I had to. Now I'm not sure it's what I want. Callum blinked. What do you want? I want mornings that start with coffee I make myself. I want someone who doesn't care whether my net worth goes up or down this quarter. I want a life that feels like it's mine. He frowned slightly. That sounds like something you already decided. I did. And I'm stepping down, he stilled. What? I'm selling my shares in the firm I've already started. I want to start something new, something smaller, something I own completely on my terms. He stared at her. Because of me, she said. But you helped me see it. He searched her eyes. You're giving up everything. I'm trading it for something better. The music slowed. She leaned in, her forehead resting against his. I love you, she said. I know it's crazy, but it's true. Callum's breath caught. I didn't think I'd ever say that again, she added. But there it is. He swallowed hard. You said you fix companies. That you rebuild them. I do. Well, he said, voice thick, you rebuilt something else too. She tilted her head. You made me believe again, he said. And I love you for it. They kissed like the world around them had vanished, just strings in the background and candlelight flickering off the polished walls. When they pulled apart, the crowd had started to clap not for them, but for the orchestra's closing number. Still, it felt like applause. Weeks later, Callum opened the door to find Dahlia standing there with 2 coffees and a small envelope. What's this? He asked. Open it. Inside was a deed, A modest building on Halstead Street, 2 garage bays, a small office. His hands shook. "Is this a joke?" "No," she said. "It's a start. You once told me you fix things. I figured it was time you had a place to do that on your terms." He stepped back, pulling her inside, eyes burning. "I didn't buy it to change you," she added quickly. "I bought it because I believe in you. And because I want to build a life where we both get to show up as we are." Griffin barreled down the hallway, socks sliding, and threw himself at Dahlia. "Did you bring the breakfast muffins?" he asked. "I brought 3, she said, grinning. Callum wrapped an arm around them both. "We're a mess, you know that." Dahlia leaned her head on his shoulder. "Yeah, but we're our mess." And for the first time, Callum didn't feel like he was standing on the outside of someone else's life. He was exactly where he belonged. Rain tapped softly against the windows of the new garage on Halstead Street, the scent of motor oil still fresh in the air, mingling with the faint warmth of fresh paint. Callum stood at the workbench, tightening the clamp on a hydraulic line, his hands steady, focused. Outside, the sign had just gone up, West and Sons Auto. The Sons was plural on purpose, Dahlia's idea. She said it made space for dreams, for the future. The front door creaked open. "You're early," he said, not turning around. Dahlia's voice followed. "I couldn't stay away." He wiped his hands on a cloth before facing her. She wore jeans, a weathered leather jacket, and no makeup, just rain-dampened hair and a softness in her eyes he'd come to recognize as home. "I brought something," she said, holding up a thick folder. "If it's another deed, I might faint." "No, it's the business license, finalized. You're officially legit." He stepped closer and took it from her. "I thought it'd take longer. I pulled strings, but don't worry, I did it by the book." He studied her for a beat. "You always do." She looked around the space. "It smells like potential in here. It smells like rubber." "Same thing." They moved into the small office where Griffin's drawing of a rocket-powered tow truck was taped above the desk. A paperweight, Dahlia had gifted him a metal gear with the words "Build what lasts" etched into it, held down a stack of invoices. Callum leaned against the edge of the desk. "I didn't think I'd ever have something that was mine." "You've always had something that was yours," Dahlia said. "You just didn't have the space to see it." He reached for her hand. "I want you to be part of it, not just on the sidelines. I want this to be ours." She ran her thumb over his knuckles. "Then let's build the kind of place people trust. No suits, no flash, just honest work." He nodded slowly. "And what about your name?" he asked. "You've got a reputation, a legacy." "I have a legacy," she said, "but the name, I'm not attached. I've been thinking about changing it." His brow lifted. "To West," she said simply, voice even. "If you'll have me." Callum blinked. "Are you?" She pulled a small velvet box from her coat pocket. "I didn't want to wait. You're the most real thing I've ever had. You and Griffin, and I want to spend the rest of my life choosing that." He opened the box. A simple band, no diamonds, no excess, just silver and sincerity. He held her face in his hands. "You beat me to it." Her eyes widened. "You were going to ask." He walked to the filing cabinet, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a tiny black box. Was just waiting for the right moment. "Guess we both lost, or we both won." They laughed, and he slipped the ring on her finger. She took his and did the same. They kissed, not rushed or dramatic, just quiet and certain. Later that night, they returned to Callum's house. Griffin was curled up on the couch beneath a blanket, his babysitter reading aloud from a book about sea turtles. When Callum told him the news, Griffin sat up, eyes huge. "Does this mean she's my mom now?" Callum looked at Dahlia. She knelt beside Griffin. "It means I'll be here. Every morning, every bedtime, every scraped knee and math test, if that's okay with you." Griffin threw his arms around her neck. "Good. Because I already told my teacher." The 3 of them stayed up late eating ice cream straight from the tub and watching a movie with dragons and terrible voice acting. Dahlia dozed off with her head on Callum's shoulder and Griffin's feet in her lap. Weeks passed. The garage opened to a line of customers down the block. Dahlia took over the bookkeeping, coming in 3 days a week between meetings with her new startup and investment incubator for small businesses in underserved neighborhoods. She called it Ground Up. Griffin started drawing blueprints for invention upgrades to the garage, including a snack vending machine that served grilled cheese. Dahlia offered to fund the prototype. Callum agreed only if Griffin wrote a business plan. They married in the park down the street from the garage, beneath a canopy of string lights and rustling trees. Griffin walked Dahlia down the aisle, tie askew, beaming with pride. There were no violin quartets or signature cocktails, just tacos, laughter, and a playlist Griffin insisted on curating himself. After the vows, Callum kissed her like the world had finally stopped spinning just to let them catch up. That night, they danced slowly on the back patio, the distant sounds of the city humming in the background. Dahlia rested her head against his chest as the rhythm of their lives finally settled into something steady and whole. "You know," she murmured, "I used to think love was a negotiation. Something you had to earn. And now I know it's not about earning, it's about choosing, over and over." Callum kissed the top of her head. "Then I'll keep choosing you. Every single day." Beside them, Griffin's laughter echoed from inside the house as he tried to teach the babysitter the dance he invented called the Griffin Shimmy. Dahlia laughed, her hand tightening around Callum's. They stood together in the soft golden light, not just surviving, but living, building something that would never need to be fixed because it was made from everything they'd already mended. And this time, it would last.